Welcome to the Whole Person Podcast. I am your host, Evan Herrman, and today I am here with a good friend of mine who I also call a cryptocurrency expert. None other than the Crypto Minute Man himself, my friend, Matt Moore. Matt, man, how are you today?
Oh, man, I am so happy to be here. In fact, I really liked that music intro there, so I was jamming out there for a minute.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun. I love talking about crypto. It's kind of a personal drug of mine. So if you're interested, I'm dealing it quite frequently.
Perfect. Well, Matt, you're here at my house with me, and, we're recording over one of my microphones and audio stuff. So that's how we are doing this together. So for those of you in Fireside who don't see who I'm talking to actually on the app, it's because he's here right next to me himself. So
here's the question, Evan.
Yes.
Who can see us at this moment besides God?
Well, no one can see us
at
the moment, but they can hear us. And so I just want to dive right into it. Okay. Just recently I started getting into cryptocurrency because I have a friend for my birthday sent me $25 of XRP. And, I decided, sure, I'll accept it. And then literally from there, it's been like hyperdrive Star Wars moments where I've just been, any extra money we've been getting into because my money is not growing in the bank. It's actually losing value.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those of us who are still new to the game, why is it better for me not to actually be saving money, but instead investing it into something that is more profitable right now?
Right. Well, saving, it's a losing game. And most people don't realize that because the paradigm has shifted, and it shifted quite a long time ago. But at the same time, people are kind of slow to catch on because most people don't realize that the monetary system, how it works, where money gets its value, where it comes from, and why inflation is going to become a real problem, and the purchasing power of those dollars are going to continue to decrease. Because a lot of times people will pull up their bank account and they just see this number that they've got in there, and they want that number to go up, so they're going to put more cash in there to make that number go up, right? Well, they're not earning interest on the money that's in the bank account, but most importantly, they don't realize, most people don't, the inflation, the loss of purchasing power on your money is such a slow bleed that people don't realize it from year to year. But as we get deeper and deeper into this game of money creation and inflation, the rising prices are going to become much more noticeable, and it's going to happen much, much quicker. It's kind of like an exponential curve. It's kind of like a hockey stick. And so, in my book, Foundations for Liberty, I talk a lot about the monetary system, which, by the way, you can find that on Amazon. The second part of the book talks about how our money is created, where it gets its value, and how all of us have truly been deceived by keeping our value in a giant Ponzi scheme. So I know I'm opening up a can of worms here, but the reason why I'm saying all this is because most people don't realize the value or use case or purpose of investing in something like cryptocurrency because they can't first identify the problem. You have to first be able to see the problem in order to understand the solution. Most people just they'll briefly look at crypto, the marketplace in general, maybe some of the ideas behind it, and they're like, I don't get this. This is too complicated. Doesn't make sense. I don't want to spend time learning this. So,
right.
But they have to have a motivation to learn it.
Well, I think you made a good point. Before you understand the use case and the value of it, you first have to understand the problem. You touched on it. The problem is the current monetary system,
right,
and how we are devaluing our dollar by continuing to print more money. As of right now, 40% of all currency in market was created last year. And that's getting ready to probably go up to 50 or 60% of all currency in market right when we get this next stimulus check.
Yeah. $1.9 trillion of new money stimulus passed. And so, what people don't realize is it takes 18 to 24 months for inflation to really start to kick in. The rising prices in food and gas and stuff, this is just the beginning, the very beginning of the wave from the first money that we created during the COVID shutdown, and quite honestly, most of that money is escaping into assets. So what we're seeing is we're seeing rising prices in assets, and people like to use the CPI for measuring inflation. But the truth is, what is your measuring stick? Because even though maybe the prices of food aren't going up quite as much as, say, real estate or healthcare or education, all those things play a big factor in your quality of life, your daily life, because you do have to spend money on all those things. So
Right.
it's the government tries to blind us by not letting us see the real numbers by playing a bunch of games with how they measure inflation.
So the big problem is that the dollar is not backed by anything. We were taken off the gold standard in 1976, was it?
71.
71.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, it's literally fiat paper. It has no backing or meaning. The only reason why it has any substantial value is because we all put our trust in it.
Right. It's a game of faith of confidence, and it is not pegged by anything of true intrinsic value. And the reason why they wanted us to go off the gold standard, in large part, if I were to summarize it, is it's much easier to print money, create money, than it is to tax the people. So really what money creation is a hidden tax on the people, and people don't realize it. So it's much easier to be able to do that. In order to do that, you have to take off the handcuffs or the limitations that a hard sound money system would provide, which is, the gold standard, which was slowly eroded throughout many years and then finally gone away with in 1971.
That makes a lot of sense. You turned me on to a YouTube series called The Secrets of Money.
Hidden Secrets of Money.
Hidden Secrets of Money. Currency versus money.
Or secret you don't know.
No, but seriously, my life and paradigm of money shifted by going through those videos.
Right.
Because I didn't understand how the financial system worked.
Right.
And how it's set up to hurt those of us that work for money
mm-hmm.
and put money in savings.
Right.
Instead of allowing money to work for us.
Right.
And so you've really been an amazing friend, a mentor, a teacher on cryptocurrency through your YouTube videos, through our conversations. And, going further into cryptocurrency, what do you think the future of cryptocurrency is going to look like? And why is it important to have a decentralized monetary system?
Yeah. So basically cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, which crypto is built on or with, is that we're going to have two systems that kind of rise up. One that's heavily decentralized, one that's more centralized, because the governments realize that this technology is so disruptive, much like the internet was. Because the analogy that I make is that cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is going to do for value and for money and for digital scarcity, essentially creating digital scarcity. But it's going to do all these things for just like what the internet did for information and communication. So it's really identifying how this technology works and identifying how these two systems are going to come and evolve and come to the scene. I do think that with this two-pronged scenario happening with decentralized systems and centralized systems, because the governments are going to want to go, hey, we're going to give you free money. We're going to reevaluate or reconstruct our total monetary system, and so we're going to issue these new versions of dollars. They're going to be completely digital. Go to the Federal Reserve website, download this app. This app will be your wallet. We'll deposit 10 grand into your bank account or into your wallet on your phone. But the thing is most people are just going to see this shiny little object that the government's proposing, and the government's going to be like, yeah, it's just like Bitcoin. In fact, we actually bought some Bitcoin and we're going to use it as a reserve asset probably. And we're going to back our new dollar, crypto dollar, by a bunch of hard assets in order to restore confidence and faith. But the problem is that once you start utilizing a centralized system like that, where they're the ones that get to control who gets to run a full node or a full version of the ledger, probably just going to be government entities. What it'll do is, imagine being able to be taxed in an instant. Imagine being able to, like, let's say somebody doesn't agree with your political philosophy or ideas, or maybe something that you're saying, they can shut you out of the economic system. But in a decentralized system where anybody can go on the internet, download a version of the software, run a full version of the node, download a wallet that was just open source code to participate in this, these networks of value, these cryptocurrency networks that are decentralized, that are completely transparent. You can audit them. It's verifiable. So in other words, it's going to provide the ability for people to transact with whoever they want, when they want, and be able to get around some of these limitations that governments currently put on capital with capital control and being able to say who is good and who is bad. So I think despite this evolution taking place, it's really going to be a battle of two systems, and these two systems will probably keep each other accountable.
I like that, because the biggest issue that I see right now is the ability to have no control over how we are taxed.
Mm-hmm.
There's death tax, which I think is the stupidest thing in the world.
Right.
Because that money has already been taxed. There's taxation on absolutely everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so by going digital, it creates more opportunities. I mean, granted, right now you would still have to pay taxes on capital gains and everything. But moving forward, there is a way to protect yourself, I think, financially from the hardships that are coming with the crash of the US dollar and what I believe is going to be a crash of the US economy.
Yeah, I mean, with these decentralized cryptocurrency networks, some of these are going to provide basically be a life raft, basically be a door to exit the system, to opt out, and I think it's going to harm governments, and governments are going to be upset. But at the end of the day, they can't stop it. It's going to be just as effective as the government was trying to stop us in the early days of burning CDs and copying music. I mean, yeah, sure, it was illegal, but we all still did it. I mean, how are they going to stop 300 million Americans from, burning CDs? Like, it's going to be the same thing as with cryptocurrency. It's like, how are you going to stop millions of people at the same time using these networks? And they're not. It's just that, they're going to have the only way that the biggest problem or curveball that they could give something like Bitcoin is to basically use sound hard money that it basically restores faith and confidence in their ability. But I don't see them doing that anytime soon. They're going to milk the system that they have until they can't anymore. And we're witnessing that, because it's going to take ever increasing more amounts of new created money in order to keep the system going. Most people don't realize that, if there was any assertive effort ever to pay down the debt or live within our means or take care of the government deficits, the whole thing would collapse in a deflationary collapse. Their only option is to continue to inflate and print more money to create more velocity, more spending, more people going out there and borrowing. But that game ends eventually, and it looks just like Venezuela.
So speaking of currency in that format, there's not one paper currency that has lasted the test of time.
No.
All of them have failed. Yeah.
Anytime the experiment has been tried with paper fiat money backed by nothing, it's all failed. It's all gone to zero. No matter, going back hundreds of years. In fact, sometimes the average lifespan of an experiment like that is about 27 years, but rarely do they go past 50 years. And if they do, they still go to zero. Some of them just die at a slower rate, but they all die.
Well, and what a lot of people don't realize is that's even happened in America, I think at least once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's happened. It's happened. The continental dollar. That's why we came up with the phrase, it's not worth a continental dollar. I mean, the founding fathers were like, hey, we're not going to do this again. We're going to basically say, hey, a dollar is basically a measurement of gold and silver, and the states can only accept payment of debt in gold and silver. So the money that we use is totally unconstitutional. I mean, there could be an argument made back in the 70s before we went off the gold standard that it was still somewhat constitutional. But the truth is, the system we use today is not anything like the one that we used in the beginning, because the founding fathers was like, hey, we don't want to deal with this hyperinflation anymore. We don't want our money to become worthless like the continental dollar.
So now going back towards cryptocurrency, mm-hmm. What advice would you give to someone who is on the verge of wanting to get in? and might haven't yet.
Like, you mean like, what would I tell somebody if they were interested in it but didn't know if they wanted to take the plunge yet?
Yes.
Okay. A lot of times people view cryptocurrency as just like a digit, like on a screen, and that's a false perception of how the technology works. A lot of people have a hard time wrapping their mind around digital scarcity, because in the past we've just had this ability to copy and paste digital information, and so we're just all accustomed to not giving true value to digital information. But that's changed, because what blockchain technology does is it does create this network and this ecosystem and this accountability and this consensus in which you have millions of participants on this network, and they've all agreed to utilize the same code. And basically, code is a set of law, right? So the code basically dictates that there will only ever be 21 million. Well, in order to actually change the supply, you'd have to get 94% of the network to agree to a new change to the code submitted by a developer. But why would thousands, if not millions, of people want to raise their hand and devalue their current holdings by increasing the supply of something like Bitcoin, for example? They wouldn't, because there's an economic and financial incentive not to do that.
And then just to get everyone to be able to vote on something like that would be an impossible task in and of itself.
Well, and even if there was a sector or a part of the community that wanted to do that, they could basically just create a hard fork of the code and do their own version of it. But there's no guarantee that would actually gain adoption or popularity or use, because people would be like, because it's happened before. Bitcoin Cash is a hard fork of Bitcoin. And in 2017, there was a big debate and argument and battle between, block sizes in what would be more effective in helping the network and its transactional process. But the key winner was still Bitcoin. So the momentum, the network effect, the security, the involvement in the Bitcoin blockchain, the main one, won out. So yeah, Bitcoin Cash is still around, but nobody really uses it.
Do you feel comfortable telling people what you started off with as your financial investment into cryptocurrency and where you're at now?
Yeah. So I probably, my first initial investment was probably $3,000 around there. And today in dollar terms, it's probably worth over 150,000.
Yeah.
So
you know what you're talking about, because you've turned $3,000 into quite a bit.
Right. Yeah. So, I'm not super wealthy by any means, but I know where this is going, and I know what it's going to do for me, my family, and my purchasing power, and also adoption and use case. There's plenty of wonderful use cases for this technology that, yes, the monetary side is one thing, and understanding that what Bitcoin is it's a vehicle for our energy. Essentially money is a tool, a vehicle for our time, labor, energy, and freedom. And, what makes something good money is something that is scarce and limited in nature, but also has the properties of money. Bitcoin has the properties of money just like gold does, but it's more superior in its divisibility, portability. And so it's like, you got to look at, okay, is there value in me having the ability to memorize 12 or 24 words in my brain if I needed to, right? And if I had to flee the country with all my wealth, if I could just memorize those words and jump
in any country, not just America.
Yeah, any country. Like, if I've got a Bitcoin wallet, and okay, let's just say I'm a Venezuelan, right? Let's use this example. Let's say I'm a Venezuelan and my country's going through hyperinflation, which Venezuela is and still is. Essentially, if you had the majority of your wealth in Bitcoin in this decentralized digital network, which is basically a ledger, decentralized ledger, essentially what happens is I could memorize a seed phrase, get rid of all the information. Not that I'm promoting people to do this, but if you had to, you could jump on an airplane and fly to another country, download a wallet or buy a hardware wallet, enter in that seed phrase, and then boom, you have access to all your money again. Like back in the day, if you had to flee the country and you tried to even maybe get 10 grand worth of wealth out of the country, it's going to be either stopped or taxed, or the ability to bring a lot of that stuff overseas or over international boundaries was hard, if not nearly impossible.
Well, I think about my family history. My family were Germans, our history, and during a very difficult time in Germany, Queen Elizabeth from Russia promised Germans, hey, come to Russia, have this free land by the Volga River, farm, and, become part of us. So my heritage, my ancestry did. Well, then she turned out to be a tyrant, mass murderer, dictator. And then they fled Russia with almost absolutely nothing and came to America. Mm-hmm. And I think about the reason why they couldn't bring anything is because the most valuable things that they could bring were themselves and maybe a few clothes and the children. They just didn't have the ability to carry. They didn't have the ability to move. And so they had to leave everything that they built. And so in scenarios where people have to make drastic changes in their life, this is a way to be able to move with freedom and ease and financial success so that you don't just leave everything that you've worked for.
Right. Yeah, that's one use case. I mean, the other use case that people don't realize is, with the ever expanding and compounding growth of technology, we're moving into a time of artificial intelligence and automated vehicles and automated machines, right? So if we're moving into this like new digital economy, this new artificial intelligence economy, where computers are going to be transacting with each other, they're going to use these blockchain networks in order to transact value, digital scarcity across between each other. So like imagine, and this is the example I use all the time, is imagine jumping into your Tesla car, which drives itself in the future, which I think they already do anyways, to some extent. So you go to your office, you park your car, and you're working. Well, instead of your car just sitting in the parking lot, why don't you send that car to go rideshare, make some money for you, create cash flow, right? So your car goes off and let's say some stranger, does a rideshare on an app and then the car pulls up. Well, the person who's getting in the car is going to scan their mobile crypto wallet to your car's wallet. And then via smart contracts and blockchain technology, by the time that car gets to its destination, the transaction is complete. And all this is done with no middleman, no person, no bank, verifying, validating, creating the transactions to make them possible. So in other words, then the car has to either refuel or recharge. So the car is going to go to drive itself to the pump or to the charging station, and the car's wallet's going to talk to the pump's wallet, and these machines are going to transact value with each other with no person initiating it. Like that blows people's minds, but that's the world that we're going to.
And there's already conversations of it happening.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is just a figment of your imagination.
No, I mean, the technology is already here for it. It's just putting the pieces together.
Right. So you went from 3,000 to 150,000. And people are wondering, how did you do that? What are some of the questions that you've asked yourself before you've invested into different coins in order to know? Because a lot of people just make emotional decisions. Oh, I see this coin seems good, I'm going to put money here.
Right.
They don't know the use case. They don't know a lot of the things to protect yourself in investing into something like this. So what are the questions that you ask yourselves before you make a decision on what you're going to purchase?
Right. Well, 80% of my portfolio is Bitcoin, and for good reason. But I do speculate 20% in these altcoins or these different projects because I do see a world where there's going to be multiple blockchains, not just one. And they're going to have different purposes, different use cases, different services or products that are offered on them. And so, the question I ask myself when looking at different projects, because there's thousands of them right now, not that I think that there will be thousands in the future, there'll be winners and there'll be losers. But, if you make the right bet on the right ones, they could pay off really well. Just like when people invested in some of these internet companies back in the 90s, imagine putting money in Amazon, and riding it out until today. I mean, you're probably sitting pretty well, but I mean, had you invested in pets.com, probably not so much. So it's just one of those things where you're making a bet based off or a educated guess based off of what's the use case for it? What are they proposing? Does it make sense in how they want to use their technology? B, do they have a working product? And then also, are there any like developers or influential people or notable people that are involved in the project that could bring a lot of weight to it and bring attention and some value to it? The other thing you want to ask yourself is what's the market capitalization like? Is there a lot of money that's flowing into it? Is it if I can answer a lot of these questions. I believe there's another question I asked myself, but I'm drawing a blank. But if I can ask myself, what? Well, yeah, who's involved? Yeah. I think I said that one earlier, but
Use
there's like
case, who's involved.
Yeah. And then working product, and then market capitalization.
Yeah.
So if I can,
what is market capitalization?
Market capitalization is essentially the amount of liquidity that's in the product or in the project right now. So if there's like $1 million market cap, that means that there's not a whole lot of momentum. There's not a whole lot of money in it right now. Now, okay, if there's only $1 million in the project, that's really, really small. But if it has good potential and does well, then you got in super early. That's like buying Bitcoin at like 50 cents or something. But it could also go to zero. So right. So it's kind of like that happy medium where you're like, okay, market capitalization is not too small, but it's not too big, because you want that sweet spot where it's like
you want the Goldilocks effect. Yeah, just right.
Because if there's enough money in it and it's drawing enough attention and it has a working product and the use case makes sense and people are starting to kind of like observe it, watch it, see it, then yeah, you're still early, but you're not. Your risk of it going to maybe totally zero is a little bit less.
So the other thing too is just scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can make determinations based off of that too. I mean, obviously that doesn't give a resounding yay or nay, but you look at Bitcoin, there's only ever going to be 21 million?
Yeah, 21 million is the cap for Bitcoin. Yeah. And yeah, scarcity does play a part in it. Is the project limited in nature, or does it continue to inflate? And if it does continue to inflate, is it for a good reason? And so, it's like some things are going to be used as a store of value like Bitcoin. Other things are going to be used for developing decentralized applications or decentralized finance or these smart contracts, or develop tokens on these platforms. So there's a reason for some of these to function the way that they do. There's certain things that you most certainly wouldn't want to maybe build on top of Bitcoin, because if something, it's kind of like that idea of if somebody is good at everything but a master at nothing, like you kind of want to be a master at something,
right?
To really give it some oomph.
So you were telling me this story about an idiot friend that you have who was overconfident in a crypto transaction and lost $300.
Well, I don't know if I was telling you about him, but I did experience it with him to some extent.
Would you be okay name dropping that person?
I think his last name is Herrman.
Yeah. Oh, that was me.
Okay, that was me. You. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Where I was trying to make a transaction and I was overconfident in my ability, in my understanding, and basically lost $300.
Yeah, well, thank God. The token you sent to that address was an ERC20 token, which is built on Ethereum. So we were able to, through a roundabout way, recoup your money. But
let me phrase that. When you say we, you mean you recouped my money for me, because I had no idea. But it leads me to my next point. Sometimes, proceed with caution. The yellow light. Yeah. How do we proceed with caution and not become arrogant, overconfident? Right. Because realistically, as you're helping me with my portfolio today and making trades and stuff like that, I feel confident enough to make these things, but you're over here helping me. That way I don't make a bogus mistake again and lose, $1,000 or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where this is such a new space. It's evolving and it is digital, and it's dealing with value. It's dealing with money. It's dealing with scarcity. So people have to be super sensitive. If you don't take your I guess your security, intentional, or if you don't cross your T's and dot your I's and be very attentive and learn and kind of grow in this space, it's very hard to be effective and be safe, because we're so used to other people managing our money, managing our value, that it's like I tell people all the time, I'm like, okay, you can have a custodian or somebody hold your money and trust them, But the whole point of the system is for you to become sovereign over your own wealth and money, and not have to deal with somebody telling you no. So it's one of those things where, you gotta measure the to risk to reward ratio. You gotta ask yourself, what do I really want in life? Do I want this ability? Do I want to have to trust somebody? So it's a learning curve. It's a huge learning curve, and so that's why I offer consulting services to help people get into the space, learn about the space, maybe help them navigate some trades, set up some wallets. Make sure that they know how to back up their wallets, and it's just like there's a lot of new elements that people just aren't used to, and it's going to get easier as the technology evolves, and it already has, but there's still going to be some bumps on the roads and some major learning curves. I mean, you don't want to be one of those guys who has lost access to all of their money, and that money has turned into millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, that would suck.
So yeah,
it you brought up a good point. We trust people with our own money, but what ends up happening, like there was a time where gold became illegal and silver became illegal,
right.
And then there was a bank rush, and when we've trusted other people with our money at different points in history, it didn't go well for those people.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't seen something like that in our lifetime
right.
yet, but it is on the horizon based off of how much we're printing money.
Right.
So what's the mindset shift that someone needs to go through to be a sovereign
mm-hmm.
individual over their own finances?
Right. Well, it looks just like back in the day, when they did take us off the gold standard. I mean, our grandparents and great grandparents, they would stuff cash under the mattress or hide gold coins in the walls of their house or something like that, because they knew that they needed to have full control, and they didn't want the government to tax or take stuff from them. So they were taking an act of sovereignty by doing that. This is the same idea, but it's just in a digital world. And so because it is a digital world, it's something where, you're going to have to know how to function in that digital space in order to do such things. I mean, because the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is the first time in human history, you have an asset that nobody can take from you if you do it the right way. And that is, if you have a wallet and let's say you were in a situation where somebody was coming after your wealth, I mean, and you memorized that seed phrase that backed up that wallet. I mean, essentially you could have no evidence of that money except for it's in your brain. Like, somebody would have to hold a gun to your head and threaten you with death. And then it's up to you whether you want to share those 12 or 24 words,
Right.
Like it's a beautiful thing.
To be able to be responsible over your own money, not having a gun stuck to your head.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
I mean, you know far more about this than I do. What questions have I not asked you yet that we should talk about? Because I'm limited in my understanding.
Yeah, I think most importantly, it's I think I do a better job of answering questions. I mean, I can tell you like how to manage your own money if you want to be sovereign over it. I can tell you like, hey, this is probably where the market's going. Don't be scared of this, certain level of volatility because X, Y, and Z.
Well, okay, let's talk about your strategy.
Okay.
So, I bet you're like, Evan, you've asked me that already, and I've already told you this. Well, just in our conversations, because I bring it up again, like, Matt, should I buy in now or should I wait? Is there going to be a dip?
Right.
And your answer is always the same.
Right. Yeah. I dollar cost average, I'm buying all the time. And really the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is even though these are the factors. First, I start out at a 30,000 foot view and then I kind of zoom in. Right? I start at this 30,000 foot view. And that 30,000 foot view is this. We live in a world of ever increasing, growing money supply, right? That's devaluing our purchasing power. So it's inflationary, right? That's the first thing. Second of all, we have an asset that is the most scarce asset in the world right now that's being utilized, this network, Bitcoin, and is growing in adoption, growing in popularity, growing in attention, and growing in value, right? So if you've got a deflationary world in an inflationary world, naturally, despite its volatility, Bitcoin has been making higher highs and higher lows. and it goes through.
What does that mean?
That basically means that in dollar terms, it's increasing in price in dollar terms. And then when it goes through its volatility cycles and it dips down, its new bottom is always higher than the last one. So in other words, despite it having these big swings, it's still growing and going in an upward momentum. So the space is expanding. The asset is going to continue to gain value and become a life raft. So
especially as we print money.
Yeah, especially as we continue to print money. And we know that's what the government's going to do until this whole game ends. So you have that aspect going on. But then if you just look at the historical cycles of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin goes through these halvening processes where every 4 years, the newly minted supply gets cut in half. So the rewards that the miners are winning by validating this and securing this network is essentially you have what they call stock to flow, and you've got the amount that's being produced and the rate of something being produced. Then you've got the amount that's currently out there available. So it's to the point to where you can kind of chart it and see how these 4-year cycles, the supply and demand economics of it, these halvenings, are having a big effect on the price and the upward movement of it, because there's not more Bitcoin being created. There's less of it being created until we get to the year 2140. The last Bitcoin will be mined or created. So and so it's like you look at that, and even though history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, it often eerily rhymes. And so I can look at it from a 30,000 foot view and go, hey, this is I see where this is going. I know the end. I know the end game of this. And Bitcoin is going to be a safe haven. It's going to be a world reserve currency. It's going to be something that the companies, governments are going to use as a reserve asset. So I just continue to buy it. Like my goal is to buy more and more Bitcoin, because money goes through this evolution phase where first it's a collectible, then it becomes a store of value, which is the stage that we're entering into. Then it becomes a medium of exchange, and then it becomes a true measure of wealth. And so that's essentially what we're having is we have this new emerging asset class that's becoming money. It's coming to the world stage. And so if your time horizon is 5-10 years out, you will be profitable in Bitcoin. I'm not a day trader. I don't try to watch charts on a day-to-day basis. I know the overall direction. I can kind of follow the trends. Like perfect example, we'll probably continue in a massive upward movement in price, be in a bull market for probably another 6 to 8 months.
Or more if we keep printing money.
Yeah, and if we go into a currency crisis, full-blown currency crisis, and everybody panics and loses confidence, then that changes everything, and we go into a Bitcoin super cycle, which is essentially anything that we have projected. Like for instance, I fully suspect that by June we'll be at 100,000. I made a post earlier that by the end of this month, second half or the first half of April, Bitcoin will be about $70,000. We broke 60,000 just last night. And so my projection is by June will be 100,000. And by October, we're probably around 200,000. And then we'll probably have a severe correction back into a new bear market with the bottom of that bear market probably around $50,000. So yeah, so you see what I'm saying? Like the last bull and bear market, we topped out around 20K. And then we bottomed out around 3K.
So let's say we do hit that and the market drops. Why should someone buy into Bitcoin now versus just wait to buy it when it overall drops?
Well, here's the thing. Like you can try to time it. But again, what
you snooze, you lose.
I know, like you've got people like Michael Saylor out there who is buying billions of this stuff because he knows it's a scarce asset. Tesla's buying it. Square's buying it. You've got BlackRock, Fidelity, Guggenheim, all these institutional players that are buying it, using it as a reserve asset, developing products and services around it, PayPal. Eventually, there's a shortage of Bitcoin. And I think we will have a supply shock. And so I would rather be holding some now. And if my time horizon is, 5-10 years from now, and I'm dollar cost averaging, the average price that I buy in is going to average out over time. Sure. Do I, cause I tell people all the time, like, yeah, I bought it when it was, $1,000, $800. I bought it when it was 3,000. I bought it when it was 20,000. I bought it when it was 50,000. The truth is my cost of entry is averaging out. And my time horizon is so long. Like, yeah, sure, I'll take probably some profits on some of my altcoin investments, but my goal is to continually every month expand my Bitcoin position, because it's kind of like that golden rule. Whoever holds the gold makes the rules. Well, the future phrase is going to be whoever holds the most Bitcoin makes the rules.
That makes sense. So for someone like myself who wants to make a lot of money in cryptocurrency, what would be your advice? Because, people are like, oh, well, Bitcoin to get my money to 10x will be very, very, very difficult right now. So how do I go about growing my portfolio in altcoins, and then also establishing myself in Bitcoin?
Yeah,
which is my take right now.
Right. I mean, like I said, my goal, I'm 80% of my portfolio is Bitcoin, always will be. And I speculate in altcoins to increase my Bitcoin holding. And I don't measure my wealth in dollars. I don't hold dollars in a bank account other than to pay bills. For me, it's one of those things where, like I said, there's going to be winners and losers in these altcoin projects. There's going to be phenomenal gains in dollar terms. Your potential to receive larger percentage gains are going to be in the altcoins, but just make sure that your core position is in Bitcoin. Because I do think we're going to get to a point where Bitcoin is going to at least get to half of gold's market cap, which is probably about $6 trillion. We just breached $1 trillion.
Okay, so let's say that happens. I have no idea what that means.
So one Bitcoin will easily probably be around $300,000 to $400,000. I mean, at the rate we're going, it's easy to see a future where one Bitcoin is $1 million.
Yeah, especially at the rate that we're going. Well, I want to open the floor up for questions from our audience. So if you have any questions right now, feel free to invite yourself up to stage. All right, Fred, go ahead and ask your question.
I don't know how I got on stage, but I mean, has anyone talked about dollar cost averaging on how to get into crypto?
Yep, we've talked about that.
Yeah, in fact, I was just talking about dollar cost averaging, and that's my strategy and has worked extremely well for me.
Yeah. Dollar cost averaging is definitely the way to go for me.
Yeah, is that been your approach, your strategy?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking to do garage sales. Like, how can I get more dollars to get more crypto?
I love it.
Or more Bitcoin.
I love it.
That's so. From what I'm understanding, what you just said, you're finding things at garage sales on the cheap. You're reselling them for more money and then investing that money into cryptocurrency.
Absolutely.
Dude, that's awesome. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Now there's multiple ways to skin a cat, and yeah.
Or if you're like me, I would probably give that one a pause. I'm allergic to cats.
Oh, that's great. No, but I mean, finding new ways to get into the cryptocurrency space and dollar cost average in and continue to expand your position. I mean, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Has anyone talked about Swan Bitcoin?
Not yet. But we are going to take a few more questions. But Fred, you bring up a great point. I waited to get into cryptocurrency till I just had extra money, and the majority of my adult life, I didn't have money to invest. But I love what Fred's doing. He's going to create a way to bring money into investing into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. That was a great idea.
And I also I don't advise this, but there's a lot of people who will use leverage and they'll use debt and they'll get into the crypto space, and especially in a bull market, it's easier to see somebody do that. I mean, especially somebody like MicroStrategies. I mean, as an individual, that's a little harder road to go down to. I'm not advising it, but I will say this. I have personally, like I said, I started out with a certain level of investment. I still had some large sums of debt. while I was dollar cost averaging in and still dollar cost averaging in, and my investment has clearly outweighed my any debts that I had. So it's like, I see that as the money is inflated, I'm going to be paying that debt back with basically devalued dollars. So
I bet that felt like a heavenly moment.
But yeah, everybody's got a method to their madness.
Well, and the other thing too is don't risk what you can't lose.
Right.
Because, if you don't have the money to lose, definitely don't use debt.
Right. And that's a good point. Like when people ask me, how much should I put in? I'm like, well, everybody's financial situation is different. Everybody's risk tolerance is different. And so I tell people, don't put more in it that you're willing to lose. And it's not because I feel like the thing is going to go to zero or the space is going to completely collapse. That's not where my conviction is. People don't have my level of conviction because they haven't, done as much research or homework as I have. They don't understand the monetary system like I do. And so, for them, I want them to be able to sleep at night. And what I found is that the more people get into the space, the more they understand it, the more they learn about it, the more they invest in it, the more comfortable they get with their decision and realize just how revolutionary this space is and how extremely well we can do if we play our cards right.
Yeah. So for me, I've diversified. I have, X amount of dollars in savings, X amount of dollar in silver, and X amount of dollars in crypto. I think crypto is probably my highest holdings, followed by savings and then silver.
Sure.
But yeah, silver is probably one of my favorite things right now too, just because if push comes to shove and I don't have access to digital access, I still have silver.
Well, and I think with good point there, silver is a very undervalued asset in the sense that it's artificially manipulated with the derivatives and paper market. And they do that on purpose for multiple reasons. Silver is used in everything from our light switches to our computers to our refrigerators to our medicine to our weapons. It's a very used metal, and most of the silver that's above ground is in a landfill or in a garbage pit, and so. There will be a day where a reckoning will come for the price of silver, and it will shoot up drastically. That is my personal belief in dollar terms. But it's also one of those things where it's a gold and silver is like an insurance. And I think people ask me all the time. They're like, "Well, what happens if the electricity goes out? What if?" And I'm like, "Well, okay, are we talking about just America? Because I still have my cryptocurrency wealth, and I could probably go to another country if I can, have the means to, and still restore, a wallet or get a new wallet and use my backup seed phrase and still have my wealth. But if we're talking like a global EMP, solar flare, everybody's electrical grids goes down, even if it's just America. Like at that point, nobody's going to care about cryptocurrency. All people are going to care about is how much food and water they have and how much ammunition they have, because most people will probably die within 6 months. So at that point, like, who cares?
So I used to watch the show called Doomsday Preppers. It was really I was really intrigued by these people, and I found it like comical relief. But then I started watching the show was based off of these people would prep for different scenarios based off of their conviction. And the one that really stuck out to me was the people that decided to prepare for a global pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, they were doing that 8-9 years ago.
Right.
And so it just blew my mind that, now we're living in a global pandemic. And then it just made me realize, I need to play out worst case scenarios in my mind and figure out how to protect myself and my family and be safe. And so God forbid a doomsday scenario happens. Like you were saying, let's say the whole economic system crashes. There's a solar flare from the sun and it takes out all electrical grids. Well, you're going to want silver. You're going to want food. You're going to want water, and you're going to want ammunition. And that would be to protect yourself. And so
don't forget tobacco, chocolate, contraceptives, and booze. Did I say booze already?
No.
Yeah, you want that.
Yeah, people's vices.
Yeah, people's vices, yeah.
And so, but the other thing too is, land.
Yeah.
To make your own food. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think that will be a really large asset in the near future. But let's move on to the next question. Sean, thank you for waiting so patiently.
We got off on a tangent.
Yeah, we did. But come on.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much, guys. Calling from Toronto, Canada. This is a general question for you, too, actually. First question is, if somebody had an extra, like, say, $65K and wanted to buy a coin today, could they? Or is it only through mining you would acquire it?
Yeah, you can. There's multiple ways to acquire Bitcoin. You can sign up with an exchange, which is like a third party, and you can create an account with them, and they can help facilitate that transaction from cash into cryptocurrency, and then you could eventually move that cryptocurrency into your own wallet. You could go to somebody who is mining it, and you could purchase it from them. That's what we call buying virgin Bitcoin. And then also you could, do what they call like an over the counter type situation. If somebody had large sums of money, they could find maybe a seller who was willing to maybe sell it to somebody, but not on an exchange. So you don't get the slippage in the prices. If it's a large sums of money, you can even go down to like, there's probably in Toronto, plenty of Bitcoin ATMs. There's a website called CoinFlip, which I use. You can, basically, if each transaction is under $900, you can do more than that. But if each one is under a certain limit, all it asks is for a telephone number and a name. And so if somebody wanted to kind of just stay off the radar, they can use a burner phone number that they bought with cash and then enter in a fake name and then put it into a wallet that doesn't have your identity attached to it. So there's multiple ways of doing it. I mean, you could sell, maybe you could sell something for Bitcoin. But the easiest, most convenient way for people to get into the cryptocurrency space is to use a third-party exchange where they can set up an account, and that third party basically links your bank account, and you can do those transactions. They will ask for information about who you are, where you live, and eventually the tax man will probably come knocking on your door saying, "Hey, I noticed you're in crypto. Let's see how much you made.
Let's see how much I can have."
So
fantastic. That's a really good.
What's your other question?
Really
Sean?
good point. Second question is, in terms of Satoshis, like, do you see those increasing in value as time goes on, and should people start hoarding those from now?
Yeah, I call it stacking sats. And so Satoshis are just a smaller division of a Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin's divisible by 8 decimal points. So like a lot of people think they have to buy just one coin. But when you buy Satoshis, you're buying pieces of a Bitcoin, fractions of a Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin goes up in dollar terms, or whatever, foreign currency that you're measuring Bitcoin in, when it goes up, those Satoshis are going up too.
So is technically, would I have Satoshis then?
Yeah, because
I don't have an actual coin.
Yeah,
gotcha. So. I didn't know that. Before you go, Sean, if you're, I don't know where you're at, but based off of your first question, if you're wanting to get more involved, Matt does crypto consulting, and so he can hook you up with his email address if you'd like.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah, if anybody's interested in some of my videos or content or educational material, or even some of my services, people can go to 2 websites really. Cryptomore.com, and that's more with 2 O's, Moore, cryptomore.com, and then also mattjmoore.com. So
cool.
Got it. Thanks so much, guys, and enjoy your day.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Leonard, I think you've been waiting for a while as well. So if you would go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to ask your question.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. I kind of took issue with some of the things y'all were saying.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, come on. Let's talk.
I think it seems to me
bring the heat.
When you say the dollar is not backed by anything, well, it's backed by the government.
Oh, government guns, yes.
I don't know. I mean, it's not that hard to not be shot. I haven't been shot so far, and I've been on the planet a long time, and the whole idea that the government is this violent, evil thing, I don't totally go for that.
We're not saying that.
Well, and people people have different views and perspectives on government, and that's fine. I think everybody is entitled to feel the way they want about their government. And what I'm just saying
well,
is,
thank you. Let me just finish what I'm trying to say.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, the government, backs the money. The government insures bank accounts. Nobody is insuring the value of cryptocurrency. And don't get me wrong, I own some. I've bought some mainly for the purpose of getting into NFTs. Mm-hmm. But you also kind of got me when you started saying about the music being free, because music is the business I'm in. And when the internet made music free, it really hurt all the people making music.
Correct.
Or a lot of them. Let's say that.
Can I ask you a quick question, Leonard? By chance?
I'm just going to let me finish one more sentence or so, and then you can ask questions. Although, so the other thing I was trying to say is that in terms of the internet has been very disruptive to a lot of businesses, and it's going to be the whole, the computer revolution is going to be disruptive to a lot more businesses over the next 10 years. We're going to see, the SAVs and, truck will drive themselves, and possibly drones will deliver your package and everything else. That is all based on internet and GPS. And I think the government plays an important role in regulating. I think that the last crash we had around, let's say, 2008, which indeed hurt me, I see that as the lack of government regulation, and not something that the government did to us on purpose. Now, maybe there were some people plotting to do that on purpose, because they were mainly taking advantage of the system. And I do think that we are the government. I think the government was changed a lot 4 years ago, and I think it just changed a lot again. And that's that was the part of all that you said that sort of didn't feel right to me. It kind of feels like revolutionary libertarian.
Well, keep in mind, we're not trying to overthrow any government or anything like that. And
no, you just opt out. You don't use violence. You just opt out.
Well, yeah. I think what we're talking about, hold on.
Okay. Well, so you're talking about opting out, but all the biggest businesses in the world are opting into blockchain. And those are the same people that have a great amount of influence on the government.
Right. So what happens when people opt into Bitcoin?
What do you mean?
So what happens to the influence of government currencies when people start opting into Bitcoin?
Well, sooner or later, the government will be involved. Governments will be involved. I mean, if you're making money, if you sell something with Bitcoin for $60 million, the government's going to come and say, well, you need to pay taxes on that. Are you not going to pay taxes on that if you sell something for $60 million?
Not if I have no desire to get out of the system and back into dollars.
Well, I don't, I have no idea how that's going to work.
What he's saying is that if he doesn't get out of his position. I
kind of like the government when.
Hold on. Hey, Leonard, you're starting to dominate the conversation. So let's let us respond and continue to take this conversation forward. But what he's saying is if he doesn't get out of his position in Bitcoin, then he won't have to pay taxes on it. Or if he uses that to buy, sell, and trade, he won't have to pay taxes on his increases either. And so, am I understanding that correctly, Matt?
So in other words, there's no way government can dictate or manage the transactional nature of the network or the system itself. So the only thing they can regulate are the on and off ramps. So as government gets rid of the confidence and faith in the current money system due to the way that they're managing it and inflating it, then naturally what happens is people are going to opt out because their purchasing power is eroding and they're losing faith. So why would somebody, it's kind of like this whole concept of Greshams Law. Gresham's Law basically states that when you've got two types of money in circulation, one that is losing value and one that is either sustaining value or growing in value, people are going to hoard and continue to buy the one that's increasing in value, and they're going to spend the one that's losing value, and they're not going to hang on to it, and they're going to basically do that until they've lost complete faith and confidence in the lesser money. And so by that point, people are going to be like, why do I want to use a barrel of paper dollars to pay for a loaf of bread? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's a pain in the ass.
Right.
So,
well, and I want to make sure we get to Leonard's point here about, being able to trust the government. I don't, not in a way that I'm trying to hurt or overthrow the government, but I don't like the fact that other people can make life-changing decisions for me or my family. So if anyone has that ability and control, I am always cautious and leery. And I feel like through this last year, we've seen that, whether it was for our betterment or not. We've seen some governors take really relaxed positions, and we've seen some governors overreach. We've seen some governors put sick people in nursing homes. We've seen printing and inflation like crazy in the American dollar. And so at the end of the day, I want to be able to trust myself and my ability and my knowledge and my skills to protect my money.
Yeah, well, and I'm not really trying to get political per se. More so, just the points that I was trying to make earlier was that just historical. Like, let's throw away all the politics. Let's throw away all the perceptions about government, like any notions that we might have, right? Like, let's just look at the facts. Let's just look at history. Any time that we've had fiat money and we have gone off of something that was limited in nature, that was intrinsic, backing the system, the governments have inflated it to the point that it lost value, to the point to where people lost faith and confidence. Every single time it's been tried.
How many fiat currencies have there been? I mean,
thousands. But this is the first time that we've tried this at a global level all at the same time. In the past, when Germany hyperinflated their currency, or when Zimbabwe inflated their currency, like, there was always an escape mechanism. There was always a way to use another country's currency, or there was another, country that was doing it better. But the example that I make now is because America was backed by gold and the world had faith in it after Bretton Woods, the Bretton Woods Agreement after World War II. Essentially, everybody's money or currency was backed by the U.S. dollar, because the U.S. dollar was as good as gold. But as soon as those countries started to request and ask for their gold reserves, the U.S. government was like, this isn't going to work. So no, we're going to unpeg our dollar from gold, and you can no longer have the convertibility, because they didn't want their gold vaults to be sucked dry, because that was going to affect the U.S. dollar in general. So essentially what happens is, when you've got all the world's currencies basically floating and falling, they're all falling together. They're all losing value together. Everybody's like, well, the dollar has strengthened today, or the euro has strengthened today. And it's like, okay, but they're all still falling. Like, it's kind of like,
it's like a helium balloon almost.
Yeah. So it's like
helium.
One is just falling faster than the other. And they all fail eventually. It's kind of like, that sometimes it's stated that the dollar is the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry bin.
For sure. Well, Leonard, thank you so much for your question and stuff like that. Tim, feel free to invite yourself back up onto the stage if you're in a better spot to where we can actually hear your question. But we want to go to Scott. Scott, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask Matt your question. While we're waiting for Scott to unmute himself, going on more to what we were just talking about.
Sure.
Why is everything falling all at once?
Well, I mean, everybody's printing money and creating money, because if they don't, it's going to affect them. And a lot of the central banks, they kind of collude together in order to make this whole fiat illusion work. It's the nature of fiat currency. So for example, most people don't realize, because we went off of a gold standard that had something of intrinsic value, Every time that money is created, it's borrowed into existence by a central bank that has shareholders, right? These shareholders make 6% annually off this money creation, and they're creating it out of thin air. So if you borrow the first dollar into existence, essentially what happens is you got to have interest to pay for that dollar that you borrowed. So where are you going to get the extra dollars to pay for the interest? If you borrowed the first one into existence, we got to borrow again. So it's a perpetual system of debt and needs new debt in order to grow. And so that's why the nature of it is inflationary. And that's why all of them are losing value or losing purchasing power, because they're all having to create money.
So let me just dumb this down for myself, and you tell me if I'm understanding this correctly. In order to make $1, we have to create $2 of debt.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. That makes, which is why we'll never be able to pay down the debt, because there's not enough money in existence to do it.
Well, and if you do, because there's always more debt in the system than there is actual currency. And so if you ever tried to pay down the debt to any substantial level, essentially the whole system collapses in a deflationary collapse. That's why you have central banks fearing deflation. And they're like, well, our goal is 2% inflation a year. Well, we're not meeting that target, so we're going to continue to create more money.
So some people will be like, well, deflation is a good thing where, goods and services don't cost as much. Therefore, it makes my dollar more valuable. So why is deflation a bad thing?
Well, I think because a lot of people view it as if your dollar is increasing in value, people are going to hoard it and they're not going to spend it. And the Keynesian economic line of thought is that you need perpetual spending and for perpetual growth. But in reality, in the Austrian school of thought, proper savings, in a sound money system, create for wiser, more strategic and healthier investment. And so when you have this capital accumulation, people are going to be a little bit more intentional and safe with their investment. They're going to do more homework. But if money is easy and people can just borrow it nilly-willy, there's going to be less thought, and there's going to be, this, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a not a healthy way to invest, in other words.
Right.
But the system we have now, it incentivizes crony capitalism. It incentivizes, and I'm a big capitalist. I love capitalism, but what we have is a type of oligarchy / crony corporatism that influences Congress, that influences the money creation. That
pay to play.
There is a pay to play system, but when you've got easy money that can be created out of thin air, and you've got these players that are closest to the money creators, they're the ones that eventually, at the end of the day, end up making the rules and being able to navigate those regulations.
That's how Jeff Bezos increased all his wealth.
Yeah, pay for the lobbyists. And the farther you get away from, your position from the money creators, the harder it gets. And the crazy part is because we live in an inflationary money system, and you've got these money creators that create it out of thin air. The ones who get that money first get to spend it first, which has more purchasing power. So they're buying assets with that. By the time that money gets down to you and the velocity of money picks up in the marketplace realizes that there's more money in the system, so prices have to rise. So you're the one that loses. But the person who got to spend that newly created money first actually beat you because they got to benefit from the purchasing power.
That makes sense. Scott, you're back up on stage. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask Matt your question. And in the meantime, if anyone else also has a question, feel free to invite yourself up on stage. I don't know if we're having a glitch on this or what.
So, I don't know.
Scott, if you have a question, would love to.
Hey.
Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right.
Welcome to the show. Let's give you a round of applause.
You're very kind. Well, I'm trying to be very careful because I'm driving here, and hands-free, of course. So here's my question. I wasn't able to tune into the whole show. Have you guys talked about branded creator coin at all?
No, we really haven't spoken specifically about any other cryptocurrencies besides Bitcoin, really, at this point.
Okay. So here's the thing. I've been involved for the last few weeks in an outfit called Rally. They're at rally.io, and they're based on Ethereum. And what they're doing is they're working with a handful of creators to create branded coins that are then available for their fan base. And what this allows them to do is basically create an economy together around this branded cryptocurrency, where, my coin, for example, is the Monty. It's timeless coin. And I can reward fans who are, particularly loyal. I can give away coin to people. I can ask people to make transactions with the coin, right? So if they buy 50 of my coin, they'll get, premium access to my newsletter or a private room here on Fireside, something along those lines. So it's encouraging people to transact with each other as well as with the creator using this particular coin. And to me, it's a really unique way of looking at things that goes beyond the pure speculation of Bitcoin and Ethereum proper, and allows people to kind of spend time and spend money with the things that they actually value. So it's kind of halfway between NFTs and Bitcoin, as it were.
Right. Yeah. No. It's. Go ahead.
If you have any opinions on those.
I don't have a personal or particular opinion on that project just because I haven't really looked into it. But I will say this: there are multiple types of cryptocurrencies that I think are going to be, these categories utilized and made valuable. What the technology is going to allow for. I mean, like you mentioned, you have NFTs, which are these non-fungible tokens that are, unique and original and can be applied to digital art and other use cases as such, maybe in these digital ecosystems in these virtual worlds. But then even you've got utility tokens, which basically grant you access into this particular ecosystem. They often work similar to like a ticket or a coupon. Then you've got ones that act like a currency, like Bitcoin. And then you can even issue shares of company stock or debt on blockchain, which is considered a security. But the beautiful thing is this technology is going to be used for so many different things, and it's going to reward content creators. There's going to be ecosystems that reward people for certain actions and attention. We're basically creating an attention-based economy. And we're just going to have we're going to have a large part of our world is going to be tokenized and verifiable on the blockchain, real world assets, digital assets. And you're going to have, like what you'd mentioned, these special ecosystems that allow for certain things. And it's going to be interesting to watch which ones catch hold and get really popular. And we're in the wild west right now. So I am constantly learning. I listen to about 4 hours of content a day. And so, I apologize for not being familiar with the project specifically that you're talking about. I mean, there are thousands of projects right now, and there will be winners and losers. And I'm trying to do the best that I can to stay educated. But even for people who are absorbing, massive amounts of information on a daily basis, it's extremely hard to keep up with.
Perfect. Well, we're going to have our last question from Sean. And then I'm going to ask Matt the famous 3 questions I end each episode with. So, Sean, what's your last question?
Again, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for the chance to ask another question. Just generally speaking, as a parent of a 12-year-old, I'm having some anxiety thinking about the future and what it'll be like for him and making sure he prepares for that. So,
you and me both, my friend.
Sorry?
You and me both.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, how do you recommend we parent in an age of crypto and of course, blockchain technology taking over the world soon? And what kind of new industries or jobs do you think are going to be cropping up as a result of all this stuff?
Well, before Matt gives his thing, one, I just want you to know, as a fellow parent, in terms of history, we are probably in the best season of history or the present that, to ever raise a kid. Healthcare, education. And so there's a lot of benefits to raising our kids currently, and just have peace in the fact that, this is the best time in any generation to bring a child into the world. So have peace with that. And then Matt,
absolutely.
Go ahead and answer his question.
Yeah. So just like those who studied the aspects of the technology that made the internet work and the concepts around the internet, they really did really well. And so I think anybody who's taking the time to study blockchain technology, or determining, like, just even studying the monetary system, what gives something value, what gives money value, how's it created, even to the point to where if they can immerse themselves and have an interest in this digital space, this evolving. I mean, this is essentially the internet of value that's taking place. So I don't think there's an easy answer other than just to be simply naturally curious, to continually learn, and to immerse yourself in the space, not to be afraid of it, but to try to understand it, because I think it's going to play a big role in the future, just like the internet did in the late 80s and early 90s as it was coming to the stage.
Well, and Sean, it's a great question too, and I'm often thinking about similar questions. The other thing too is I would highly encourage my children to learn skills, things that, whether it's tradesmen or electrical, lawyer, doctor, a physical skill. And I'm going to encourage my children not to go to college as of right now. I mean, things can always change, but I'm going to encourage my kids not to go to college unless if the vocation that they want to do requires a degree, because you will be getting into a lot of debt to acquire a degree. Whereas if you had a skill, you'd probably be more substantially financially sound over the long term versus not having to pay back debt and just continuing to work. And so I think skills are another thing. And then the other thing as well is, information right now is bountiful. And so, Matt learned all he's learned about crypto from studying online. He didn't go to a university for this.
Right.
I've learned everything that I've learned about real estate is because I've been in the industry, and, it took a little bit of education to get my license, but I didn't have to go to college for that. There are ways to get education and training and personal growth and self-development without going into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And that, I got to be honest, like, that's one thing that handicapped me for over 10 years is that I went to a university, great university. I learned a lot, got a degree in theology that didn't do anything for me except in my spiritual growth and development. Now, was that worth it or not? I could have gone to a Bible college for a lot less money. So
I don't know if that answered your question. Did we?
No, sounds great. So basically, tear my son off Fortnite and have him learn Unreal Engine, basically.
Hey, you want to know something funny about Fortnite? Most people don't realize this, but Fortnite had, I think, the largest attended concert ever in human history, as far as like everybody participating and being involved in it. And I don't play Fortnite, so I think they were also like doing it with virtual headsets or something. I think, can you use for VR with Fortnite? I don't know.
I played once.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Well, but you know what's crazy? Blockchain technology, what it's going to allow for, because kids today are growing up in these gaming systems. They're spending thousands of dollars on, these weapons, skins, all these things, my buddy of mine was like, yeah, it was the strangest thing. My kid, he like asked, he's like, instead of like all these presents, he's like, can I just have a gift card or some money to spend in this game? And he was like, he's spending money on like digital things in a game. He's like, that just blew my mind. And I was like, yeah, I said, absolutely. And that's the mindset they're having as they grow up, and they're going to assert value and scarcity to this world, and blockchain,
which is going towards NFTs,
which goes towards NFTs. But also, like this idea that, imagine being at that concert in Fortnite, and you go up to the guitar player and you're like, hey, I want to buy your digital guitar, which is maybe like an NFT or has some kind of unique ID that's assigned to the blockchain to show that it's scarce and original, and it's the only one. And you're like, hey, I'm going to buy that guitar. I'm going to put it on my digital wall, and I'm going to show all my digital friends that I bought that guitar at that concert.
Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
Doesn't that blow your mind?
Wait till they throw the data behind that to have like exclusive like access to all the tours in the future as well. That makes it more scarce and more valuable.
Right. Yeah. It's a whole new world.
Yep.
Sean,
well, thanks so much, gents. I appreciate it.
You bet. I'll let you kick yourself off stage.
Yeah.
All right. Well, because Seth is one of my good friends, If he has the final question, I'll let him have the final question because I saw him just come up. We're probably just waiting for the lag to
there's like a lag time or something?
Yeah, there is. Oh, he jumped off. All right. That is the final question. All right. Well, Matt, I like to end each show that I do with the same 3 questions. You ready for this?
Okay.
What's the best decision you've ever made?
Best decision I ever made. Learn about money. Besides my salvation, learn about money.
Okay. I agree with that. The next question is, what brings you peace?
What brings me peace? Like activity wise, or
just what brings you peace? Peace of heart, peace of mind, peace of soul?
Grace.
Okay. Explain that.
Knowing that not only am I completely and eternally forgiven, but that I also carry that on to others. And when you don't hold grudges and you're not easily upset because you just don't care, it's very liberating. And so grace and forgiveness is a pivotal part of my life, and I try to stay not offended. I'm probably one of the least offended.
But then you'll have friends that will walk into previous restaurants and like, oh, we moved. That's an inside joke.
I think I missed that one. I'm sorry.
No, remember, like I will talk about it.
Okay, we'll talk about it later. I'm a horrible friend, it looks like.
No.
Okay.
No, when we moved restaurants for our
club. Yeah, for Tiamos, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was fun.
What was your other question?
In terms of negative self-talk, because we all have that inner voice, that inner monologue, that that deceiver on our shoulder. What do you currently struggle with in negative self-talk?
In negative self-talk?
Yeah.
I would say that I measure myself to my father a lot. And so
you want to expound on that, or just
my father's just really, really successful in his own right, and I've grown up around it, and it's been a beautiful and wonderful thing, and it's been an advantage, but it's also been, it's kind of one of those blessings and curses things, because as you got this big shadow, you're also trying to make a name for yourself and try to become your own thing instead of trying to maybe perform or become something that maybe you perceive somebody wants you to become, but they may not actually be perceiving that. So it's I would say that it's been a great thing, but also been something that I had to be very careful about.
Right. Well, on a side note, my wife and I were talking about you yesterday after you left the house, and she brought up that, or was it before you came? It was before you came yesterday, that, she mentioned just that, how what makes you an exceptional person is that you're trying to do your own thing, and you're trying to, I don't want to say just prove yourself, but not go off the coattails of your father's success, but make your own mark.
Right.
And not just taking advantage of, and she's like, this is what she said. She goes, that's how he's a stand-up man, is that he's doing this on his own, and he's not just taking the easy life.
Yeah. And I think a large part of that has to do with just not so much like me wanting to I'm going to prove my dad, prove my dad this or that. It's more so we have such unique and different interests that if I don't pursue my interest, I am not fulfilled.
Yeah.
So for me, I have to do what I love.
Which, by the way, Matt has an awesome nonprofit he started called Young Businessmen of Tulsa. So if any of you guys are listening through the outside links that we shared, love to have you in the app next time for our conversation. But do you want to share briefly about that before you go?
Yeah. So we have a small group that gets together on a regular basis. There's about 60 to 80 people that come to each luncheon, and we bring in a speaker. We have like-minded people. We learn. We have mentorship programs. It's a lot of fun. ybtok.com. You can learn about it there, search it there. But also I do want to make mention, everything that we talked about today, and we should have done this in the beginning, was just my personal opinion and experience. This is not legal or financial or tax advice. This is just simply me being excited and passionate about cryptocurrency and love talking about this subject, but it's not financial advice.
Right. We've never told anyone what to do.
Sure. But I like to say it anyways.
Right. All right, guys. Well, I love you so much for being awesome audience members, and thank you for your time that you spent listening to us today. I want to give my friend Matt a round of applause, and then we're going to head out from here.